Hello there, thank you so much for stopping by. My name is ChitChad and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster, where we are working on a Super Mario theme park. For today's episode, we are working on Luigi's Mansion, which I'm really excited for. So with all that being said, let's jump in. Alright, I said this was going to happen on the previous episode, and it is. We are working on Luigi's Mansion once again. I know it's been a very, very long time since we have worked on this project, but I have so many wonderful ideas for things that we are going to do for this dark ride. New animations, new ways to kind of structure not only the exterior, but the interior as well. Lots of things to do on this episode. We are going to be doing a lot of screen placement for future animations. And like I said, we're going to be changing up the exterior of the ride to make it a little bit larger. And we are also going to be doing one of my least favorite things, and that is terraforming all around this building so that it is a true dark ride, in the sense that even if the lights are on, if the daylight settings are on, it's still going to be relatively dark on the inside, because Planet Coaster doesn't really understand lighting. So even if you're inside of a building, it still simulates a lot of light where there shouldn't be. So the way to counter that is to actually encase this entire building in ground. Now, of course, you can switch rides to be dark as soon as they start, because now we have those new options with the ride settings. However, even if it's completely dark out, there's still a little bit of light that seeps in through the building structure. So today we're going to be changing a little bit with the way this ride looks. Now, originally this was an open area where the ride system could interact with the guests, and originally I thought that would be a fun idea. However, with the thought that we're going to add a lot of animations to this ride, I wanted to have more instances where those screens could interplay, and having the guests there, I think, would kind of take away from the ability to have the coaster kind of look and peer over the railing. So you'll kind of see where we're getting at later in the video. You'll also notice that there was a bit of a jump there. We do jump around a couple times in this episode just because a lot of the things that I was working on in this episode in particular was pretty monotonous and repetitive, and I didn't want to have to subject you all to that over and over again, especially when it comes to the terraforming sections. So like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of changes to the way the mansion's set up, but it's all for the better, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do a lot of setup in this episode, and the payoff will be with the animations in the future, and I am very, very excited for that. So like I said, you might have seen a jump previously. That's because I had to turn off all the people. For whatever reason, my recording software was really starting to give me some headaches, and things were just starting to run really, really slow. And while I was working on the queue, it just, in my mind, it would be rather obnoxious to constantly see people funnel in and out of the queue, especially when we, speed this up, for this video. Because I don't know, I try to be as conscious as possible when I am recording these, because I know that objects are going to be moving, 7 times as fast as normal, so some things might be a little bit more obnoxious. So getting rid of all of the peeps in the park, I thought, was the way to go. Plus, it also was helping out my screen recording, because a little bit behind the scenes, I'm really kind of bummed out. I've lost a lot of recordings recently, and I don't know if it's due to my system, which I hope not, because this is a stellar computer. So I don't think it's that. I just think it's just bad luck. Or maybe it's just some setting with the switch that I am unaware of, because a lot of the recordings that we didn't necessarily lose footage outright. I guess I should be more specific. The frame rate wasn't consistent, so a lot of those videos are going to have to be redone or reworked somehow, which is kind of a bummer, but it is what it is. It's the world of recording in general. So you're going to see, like I said, a lot of screens, and that's just me playing around with the idea that these are going to be replaced with animations sometime in the future. There will be some reused animations. So for instance, I'm going to make a couple of jump scares with the different ghosts from Luigi's Mansion, and we're going to utilize those in more than just one spot. A lot of these picture frames, a lot of the background screens are going to utilize those. And for the upstairs, we are going to have those windows. Now, originally the ride was going to peer out onto basically the exterior of the ride, and I thought that would be a fun moment. But the more I thought about it, the more I think that would actually take you out of the experience. So we went ahead and plugged that up, and we're going to utilize screens instead. And I think it would also be a really fun opportunity to do an effect that I remember so fondly from the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror ride, at least the one in California. I think the one in Florida also has, because that ride's still around, also has this effect. Well, essentially, the ride goes by a mirror, and that mirror then shifts and becomes ghost-like. So you see a reflection, and then it slowly turns into like a ethereal ghost type image, and it's really cool. So I thought it'd be really fun as the ride vehicle goes past one of those screens, that at first we'll utilize some clever screen capture to make it look like it's the guests that are looking back at themselves in the mirror, and then the next screen will be just a bunch of ghosts sitting there. So I think that would be really fun. And I think that's going to be the place where I'm going to utilize that. So out here, which is going to be kind of the grand finale of the ride before we get to the ending, is Luigi facing off against the King Boo character. And this is going to be really, really fun. And I wanted to kind of basically limit the field of view, just because we have to fit a very large screen in there, but that screen is going to be completely... it's not going to have the characters completely taking up the entirety of the screen. A lot of it's going to be a background element. So this is kind of like shielding the view from any holes that the screen might not, cover. So I added this kind of this overhang, which is in the exterior of this building as well. So it's not like it's, out of place. And this also allows me to have one section where it's going to be Luigi kind of walking up, and the King Boo character is going to appear from behind him, and then that's when the ride vehicle will go slightly past that, and then that's when you see the grand, like, it's Luigi facing off against this ghost as he's trying to get him into the poltergust, and it's just gonna be a really fun scene to animate. Of course, I can't go too crazy, or else this will never get finished. So it's going to be some limited animation, but I still think it'll be a really cool kind of grand finale before we go into, Mario being extracted from the painting and all that good stuff. So yeah, this room I'm really excited for, just because it's going to be a really fun piece to not only draw, but to also animate. So you can see I'm creating that little mini section, like I said, where Luigi is going to be kind of like walking, maybe even look at the audience, and then like the glass panes behind him might like break, or somehow the king ghost is revealed, and then on the next scene it's the big ol' confrontation, which I'm really excited for. It's gonna be fun. I've been really wanting to jump back into this dark ride for quite a while. I don't know, for some reason I was just getting a little burnt out on this project in particular, so that's why I stepped away for a while, just because I felt like a lot of my ideas weren't good enough, and I wanted to really like whatever it is I came up with, because this is going to take a lot of time. I need to also consider the other dark rides that I want to do in the future, and I've definitely learned a lot from this one in particular on things that I could have done better, and things that I will definitely implement in the future. Especially when it comes to the track layout and just the construction of the scenes. I kind of did myself a disservice of trying to build everything inside all of these little mini containers, when really I could just have everything out without a ceiling or anything like that, and just be able to build from a top view and be able to not have to worry about the camera being stuck inside of a building. But as I'm saying that, we are going to start covering up the entirety of this building with the terrain. That way we'll be getting some true lighting conditions, and then we can start lighting things more appropriately. Because right now, I do like the overall saturation of colors, because I am going with more of that cartoony vibe that Mario's so well known for, but I'm also going to want to tone it down a little bit, because once we cover everything with this terrain, those lights are going to become so much more vibrant and bright, and they're going to fill the rooms a lot more, because they're not competing against any other light source. It's just themselves. So we're going to be able to play around with a lot of really cool lighting. And I definitely want to utilize those kind of effects, those kind of lighting effects, because we're going to be going in and adding a lot of triggered events, which, again, it's going to be really fun. I've been looking forward to getting back into this project, especially because it's going to give me so many wonderful ideas to utilize in future Dark Ride builds, especially the one that I keep talking up and down, which is the Over the Garden Wall, because that's going to be a really fun, cartoony, but also has that scare factor. It's going to be very similar to kind of the tone of this ride. You know, it's got that cartoony aspect, that whimsical kind of style, but there's also this sense of dread and horror. And I think that franchise, or that series, that mini series, just did such a good job balancing all of that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. In building this, it really makes me want to go back and play Luigi's Mansion, just because it's been such a dang long time since I've played it. I was actually watching a bunch of cutscenes from it to kind of get inspired before I actually started the build process for this. So now comes the time where we're going to build, basically, this thing is the Turduncan of builds. So you have the inner mansion, or you have the exterior mansion, which has an inner mansion, which has another inner mansion in the actual ride itself, which the exterior is then going to have this terrain and then another building surrounding it to make it not look like it's just a giant block of ground. It's fun. It's fun, but it was also, so much work. It was just like slowly, like, there's a lot that was cut from this episode, like I said, but it was just slowly like moving the terrain little bit by little bit just to make it look right. And eventually I'm happy with the result, but man, was this ride occupies a much bigger space than I originally thought it would. So it's a little I guess unrealistic in that aspect, but again, I'm not really going for full on realism, just enough to where you could look at it and be like, yeah, I can see that maybe, existing in the real world, potentially, perhaps, maybe. Sure. So you'll see that now that we've gone in and added all this terrain, it's so much darker. Like before, when we were in that room that's currently unoccupied, but it's going to be a dining room, you could see all the walls. Like, it was completely bright. But now that all this terrain is there, it's almost completely dark. I actually had to switch on the camera, the light, which I completely forgot that there's a little mini light that you can turn on. I think it's L for light, that you could switch on and off if you're in a dark space in the game and you can't exactly see what's going on. So right then and there, you saw the spider, right? And all of the smoke was a lot brighter. Well, that's because it was still daytime outside. So there's still some effects that are being affected by the light source. But as soon as I switched it to night, then it became, much darker and looked more natural. And that's the combination of the terrain and the lighting, which we're going to use in tandem with each other to really make this ride pop. So again, you're going to see me skip around a little bit, re-adding all the trees and stuff to kind of fill this area out. But now that we have this giant studio exterior style building, I wanted to go back and edit the mansion itself to be a little bit bigger, because it's being dwarfed by this giant show building. And then eventually in the final looks of this video, I do add kind of like a paint scheme to the front of this, and then we add like a moon behind the mansion itself, just to give it a little bit more pop and not make it look like this just giant gray building, which it's always really fun to go and look at. I know it's kind of a silly thing, but I like looking at the top-down views of theme parks, especially on like Google Maps in the 3D mode, and just see exactly what they 3D modeled, or what the system, the camera or whatever was able to extract from the image information. And it's really cool to see some of the rides that we know and love, but we only see like one side of it. We see the side that they want us to see, but with that, you can see all the things that they don't want you to see. Like, you can see, where they store all of the other ride vehicles, or where the show building actually is, or how much space it actually takes up. And I just always find that so darn interesting. But, surprisingly, we are towards the end of this episode. We're jumping into final looks now. I'm really happy with the setup that we've got going. We're going to continue working on Luigi's Mansion and filling out some of these show scenes. And a lot of animation is on its way. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I will chat with you on the next episode.